My name is Susan Polansky. I live in Lexington, Massachusetts, and I am a fabric collage artist. I'm also a mixed media artist. I had a vivid imagination, and I just kept myself amused with all the things that were there and invented stories. This is my father. This is his army picture. He was in the Battle of the Bulge. He was one of the only survivors from his regiment or group or whatever that came back from the Battle of the Bulge. This is my father and me in the greenhouses. We had 14 acres of greenhouses. We were the largest grower of poinsettias on the East Coast. So even though my parents didn't want me to be an artist, growing up in a place like this that always had color and senses and smells, and I watched the light passing, see how different it was when the greenhouse glass was whitewashed. And that's what started me as an artist. To grow this number of plants, it's very hands-on. So it's very time-consuming. It's very hard work. And because my parents really appreciated natural beauty, just the ethic of hard work, being patient, solving problems. They didn't really hire anybody to do things. They believe that you do it yourself, that you figure out whatever the problems are, and you just work at it until you come up with a solution. So a lot of those things that they were teaching through greenhouses and the hard work of growing these plants, I learned those lessons and I have them towards my art. Yeah, these are like all of the it's different tools that I have for different types of things. These are all like needles and pins, and then I have things for drawing. These are my colors that I work with. Each one of these drawers has different colors. And when I'm making something, I think to myself, I want a blue that's like crisp winter. It's really like very fresh. That has a blue fabric in my mind. Like I know what I would look for.
Yeah.
Or how about when you wake up in like a misty summer day? That has a different feel to it. I can pick a fabric that feels like that to me. I started it because I saw an article in the paper and I heard a lot of news stories about a tragedy that happened in Pennsylvania Amish country. They're a social and religious culture that have developed to really be a separate community that doesn't want a lot of modernization. They really believe in sort of plain, simple life can be closer to God. They're usually known for a lot of agriculture and farming. They have a very certain way of dress and looking that makes them stand out as different. And tourists will go to Amish country just to see this sort of natural life and the costumes and everything. So very often what you'll see people and women in sort of old-fashioned kind of dresses with very plain, maybe intense colors, but very plain, no patterns. They have bonnets on their head, and the men have the straw hat. There's a lot of like horses and horse and buggies, and sometimes they'll have bicycles, but no cars or anything. So anyway, I saw this article in the paper about an Amish community in Pennsylvania that had a one-room schoolhouse that a tragedy happened there. There was a man who was not Amish who just delivered milk to the schoolhouses. And he went crazy and he boarded himself up in a one-room schoolhouse with the kids. He shot the kids. I think 5 of them died, and I think there were 7 kids that he shot altogether, and he shot himself. What really amazed me is that the Amish people turned around with forgiveness for him and his family. That really touched me, and the whole story really touched me. So I decided that I wanted to do something about that. I was at a stage in my sort of artistic career that I decided I didn't want to use any paint. I just want to use fabric and thread. I want to see if I can do this whole composition without paint, because paint was cheating at that point. My first name for the piece was called Finding Joy, but then there was a political party here that decided their slogan was going to be Finding Joy, and it was like, oh, they took my title, I have to think of a new one. But I like The Edge of Infinity. I like the title. Titles are really important to me to help introduce the work to somebody. It was a fantastic festival of people hear Day of the Dead and it sounds scary, but with the Mexican attitude there is that death is a part of life. Just try to rejoice in the time that you had with people that, you know, have left this world. To think about that rather than the pain and the grief. I mean, we all feel the pain and the grief, but if you can really try to think about the joy and the happiness, I mean, that's a huge gift to experience with anybody in this life, that you could share part of their life. I love that feeling, and that the fact that they will go to a cemetery and have a picnic, and they bring musicians, and they have flags and flowers are all over the place. It's crazy, because they're thinking about the joy of the people that they had experienced in their life. I think that was a huge lesson for me, even after experience of grief, that there can be happiness that goes along with it. And I realized that my artwork was trying to help me push against that wall of grief, that I had joy and happiness and brightness and color inside me, and I could use my art to help push against the edges. So I think something that's really interesting about that quilt is that there's a very dark black rim around the whole edge. That's the batting of the quilt. A quilt usually has a top layer, the fluffy stuff inside that gives it a little dimension, that's called the batting, and then it has a backing layer. In this quilt, I have the batting exposed, and I also have the backing exposed, which in almost every quilt, you don't see that. You don't see the batting and the backing, because that's sort of the ingredients you hide, you know? People just want to see that top layer. But I've exposed what I'm feeling in my insides. I'm exposing that to everybody. And that's why that black surround is around it. So I thought that was just interesting, and it was a lot of times when I'm working on something, I'm not thinking about it really consciously of why am I doing this. It's coming from some part of me. I don't know exactly why, but then it's clear afterwards. Oh yeah, this is the meaning. There is a very hard edge between life and death. 1 minute and then the next. There's a very, very abrupt stop. It does go on forever, but then again, people's lives can go on forever if you have inspired somebody, if you've taught somebody, if you've interacted with somebody in some way. You are carrying on your own existence because you've made ripples in the pond that go out and out and out. It was really important for me to get this out into public, because there's a lot of people that have dealt with incredible grief, sadness, losing someone that they just are so brokenhearted about. If I can show people that I've experienced this and I found a way to find joy afterwards, that maybe that will help somebody.
Better than I am. Sue sees the world as she sees beauty in everything. She just ends up with idea after idea after idea. She always jokes when we're taking a drive. We usually go out for coffee around 2 o'clock in the afternoon. She's always like, "Don't laugh, but I have another idea." You know? And her ideas are way out there. But then when you see the final product, you go, it's magnificent. And it makes you feel something. She's not a typical artist that, in my opinion, paints things like waves or birch trees and snow or, you know, typical things. She thinks outside the box. True creativity. Willing to take risks where many artists are not willing to take risks. She's willing to take a risk and do something that other people may just not completely understand or even understand at all. But that's the true artist.
I have always wanted to do artwork, creative stuff. You know, it was difficult with not having any career training for any of that. I graduated with a biology degree and I didn't really have any career training with that either, but I knew I managed a greenhouse for a while. I didn't know how to be an artist. I didn't know what that meant. It took me a long time to get that and learn what I needed to do. He's been so supportive my entire time that I've known him. He's always tried to free me up to do, because he knows that's my passion, is really just want to do artwork. But the time is, everything that I do, it takes so long, and when you're a mother or a caretaker, you don't have time like that to just pour into a project. So I would do little bits and pieces, and it's because I was persistent in that desire of wanting to do artwork that I've accumulated a body of work, enough pieces. Like some people will do 30 pieces a year. I don't do that, I don't have that, but the pieces that I do are really good. If I have to say so myself, I just put my heart into it, and whatever time I have, you know, I'll use that time for the art. We've collected so many stories, and then so much of it just leads to art. I'm just fortunate that we've had so many adventures. And whether we plan the adventures or not, or it's just the type of people we are, that we say yes to things, and then when you say yes, you don't know what's going to happen sometimes, but you're opening yourself to, okay, whatever happens, good or bad, we can deal with it, and like, we'll make it an experience to remember.